Good morning, dear learners. Welcome to our lesson, Agriculture, Form 3. And our topic today, we are going to introduce soil and water conservation. Soil and water conservation. And we are going to start by looking at soil erosion. Soil erosion. So the definition of soil erosion. Soil erosion refers to the process by which the soil is detached, removed and carried away from one place to another where it may not be useful. So soil erosion, this is the process by which soil is detached. Soil is detached, removed, and carried away from one place to another. From one place to another where it is not useful. Where it is not being used. Then we are going to look at factors influencing soil erosion. Factors influencing soil erosion. Factors influencing soil erosion. So factors influencing soil erosion. These are the factors which contribute or which leads to there being the soil force leading to soil erosion to take place. Number one of the factors influencing soil erosion is amount and intensity of rainfall. Amount and intensity of rainfall. Amount and intensity of rainfall. So the amount and intensity of rainfall, this one influences soil erosion in the following way. You will find that in those areas where or places with heavy rainfall, they are more likely to be eroded. They are more likely to be eroded. So the amount and intensity, so the more the amount and the heavy the intensity of the rain, you'll find that you're going to have so much of the splash erosion, and this more amount of water, you are going to have the water running, the surface runoff taking place very fast, thus influencing the rate at which soil erosion is taking place. Number two, the other factor is the slope of the land. Slope of the land. The steepness of the slope determines the speed of runoff, which in turn influences the erosive force of water. The steepness of slope determines the speed of runoff, which in turn influences the erosive force of water. So the steeper the slope, the faster the rate at which the water is moving up, and thus increasing the rate at which soil erosion is taking place. So slope of the land. So the steeper the slope, the faster the speed of surface runoff. So runoff in this case, it refers to as the speed of the water which is on the surface of the water as it rains. Slope of the land. Then number three, we have the next factor is the type of soil. The type of soil. Some soils with loose texture, for instance, we have sandy soils. These are easily eroded because they are not well. They are detached from each other, and that makes them prone to soil erosion. So the type of soil, you'll find that where we have sandy soil, the rate at which the rate of soil erosion is higher as compared to where we have clay soil. So sandy soils are easily eroded, and clay soils, they are the least affected. Then you have the depth of the soil soil depth. Soil depth. Shallow soils become easily saturated with water, thus they are easily eroded. Shallow soils, they are easily saturated with water, and thus they are easily eroded. So when we talk about the shallow soils, you'll find that if in case of deep soils, we are going to have that if this is the depth of the soil, you'll find that by the time when we have the rainfall, so this water is going to percolate into the ground, and before it reaches the harder surface down there, you'll find that when the water is saturated, before we can have a runoff here or we can have soil erosion, it will take much time. But when we have the shallow, then it means that we have this is the depth of the soil, and then this is the hard surface, So this soil will be easily saturated with water, and then it is going to be eroded in the form of solution form. It will mix together with the water, and then it will be eroded. So that explains how the depth of the soil is going to have to influence soil erosion. So we can say shallow soils become easily saturated with water and thus easily eroded. Shallow soils are easily eroded. Then we have vegetation cover as the other factor. Vegetation cover. So vegetation cover, this one influences soil erosion, whereby you find that in those soils or in areas where we don't have the ground cover, and ground cover, examples of ground cover, we can have grass or any other cover crop. Grass is one of the examples, or we can also have some cover crops. Examples of cover crops, like we have the sweet potatoes. That's an example. So you'll find that you're going to have an extensive ground cover, and in case of the rainfall, you'll find that as this rainwater moves on the surface of the soil, the soil particles will be trapped in the grass, and thus we are going to have reduced soil erosion. So in an area where we don't have any ground cover, in case of our bare ground, you'll find that as it rains, we are going to have splash erosion, or the raindrops. You're going to have some splashes whereby the top soil will be detached because of lack of proper cover crop. And then we are going to have the surface runoff on the surface of the ground. Then you're going to have the soil being detached and moved together with the water, leading to soil erosion. So vegetation cover, this one helps to reduce the surface runoff. And then it binds soil particles together. It binds soil particles together. The next factor is overstocking. The term overstocking refers to the practice of rearing many animals in a small area. Having or rearing many animals in a small area. So this overstocking, so where we have so many animals which are reared in a small area, we are going to have the trampling. By their hooves, so we are going to have trampling. And the trampling of the many cows or the herds together, we are going to have the detachment of the topsoil. And in case of any vegetation cover which was present on the surface, we are going to have it being destroyed, and then the topsoil will be detached, and then we are going to have loose soil which is now ready, which in case of heavy rains, we are going to have the topsoil being eroded away. And in case of wind, the topsoil which is detached is going to be blown easily by the wind, leading to soil erosion and thus overstocking. This one is rearing of so many animals in a small area, which is going to be a factor which influences soil erosion. Then we have deforestation. Deforestation refers to the act of cutting down trees without planting more trees. And the cutting down of trees, remember that it has a direct effect on the ground cover, because trees provide a good ground cover on the soil beneath. And once we don't have now the vegetation, or we cut down the trees, remember the roots of these trees, they bind the soil particles together, making sure that we don't have any soil erosion taking place. So deforestation, when the forests are cleared, it exposes the soil to erosion. When forests are cleared, it exposes the soil to erosion. So the other factor influencing soil erosion, we have green weeding. Green weeding refers to the practice whereby when the farmer is practicing weeding, you find that in between the rows we don't have any material which will trap the soil particles which will trap the soil which has been carried by the water, and that's leading to soil erosion. So green weeding, for example, you can have where we have a plantation of maize, and in between you find that we have some farmers practicing intercropping. Maybe you have maize and then you have beans in between the rows. But where a farmer is practicing green weeding, then it means that we only have the maize, and in between we don't have anything in the row. And that's once green weeding has been practiced, it means that this soil over here will be left bare. And in case of very heavy rains, this soil over here will be detached and it is going to be carried by the surface runoff. It will be carried by the rainwater, leading to soil erosion. Green weeding. Then we also have plowing up and down the slope. Plowing up and down the slope. So we are going to have an example of this. So in case of a slope, we have our slope over there. When a farmer plows up and down a slope, then it means that you're going to have some furrows running from up, down. And in case of very heavy rains, then rainwater is going to flow at a very high speed, because remember we talked about the slope of the land. And the steeper the slope, the higher the rate of soil erosion. So in case a farmer plows up and down the slope, you'll find that as this water flows across the furrows, along the furrows, it is going to carry with it a lot of soil, leading to a very high rate of soil erosion. So to control this soil erosion, a farmer is supposed to plow across the slope. So this is how it should be done, across the slope. Such that in case of these heavy rains, most of the water, instead of flowing downhill, whereby you are going to have a very high intensity of water carrying with it so many volumes of soil. So in our case, when the farmer plows across the slope, most of the water will be held on the contours, and this will help to reduce the rate of soil erosion. So there might be some very minimal erosion, or there will be no erosion at all. Planting, the other factor influencing soil erosion, the other factor is planting of annual crops. Planting Planting of annual crops on steep slopes. Planting of annual crops on steep slopes. So this is a factor influencing soil erosion, whereby remember that when we talk about the annual crops, these are examples of crops which are grown and they take a period of less than a year to grow to maturity, and then they are harvested. So once you plant the annual crops on steep slopes, then this means that you will be required that each and every year there will be some plowing which has to occur. You have to cultivate this piece of land at the end of every year, and this will lead to some detachment of the soil, leading to soil erosion. So in case of annual crops, they should not be grown on the steep slopes. So where we have the steep slopes, the recommended crops to be grown on steep slopes are things like coffee. You can have things like coffee or even tea, which are examples of perennial crops. These are examples of perennial crops. And with perennial crops, these are crops which require a period of more than 1 year to grow until they are harvested or they are picked or plucked. So with the coffee, because they have a very extensive ground cover and their roots, they bind the soil particles together, thus leading to control of soil erosion. So planting of annual crops on steep slopes, this one should be avoided as it is a factor which influences soil erosion. So from there then we can comfortably look at types of soil erosion. How many types of erosion do we have? Or what causes this soil erosion? In what forms does soil erosion take place? So types of soil erosion, we have various types of soil erosion. So number one, we have soil erosion by water. Soil erosion by water. Then number two, we have soil erosion by wind. We also have soil erosion through man's activities. Soil erosion through man's activities. Another type of soil erosion, we have riverbank erosion. Riverbank erosion. Then you have solifluction erosion. Solifluction erosion. We also have, finally, we have landslides. Landslides. So we start by looking at soil erosion by water. Soil erosion by water. Soil erosion by water includes the following. Number one, we have examples of soil erosion by water. We have it takes place through splash erosion. Then number two, we have sheet erosion. Number three, we have rill erosion. And the fourth type of soil erosion by water, we have the gully erosion. So we start by looking at splash erosion. This is erosion which results from the impact of water drops directly on soil particles without any superficial flow of water. And the process of splash erosion is as follows. So splash erosion takes place as follows. So we are going to have number one, a raindrop falls hitting the ground, a raindrop falls hitting the ground. Then as it falls, it makes a tiny crater in the ground, or it makes a tiny hole. This is our example. So we are going to have our raindrop falling on the ground. It makes a small hole. This is our raindrop. It causes a splash of fine soil particles to be dislodged from the crater to a distance. So we have this soil has been dislodged. It causes a splash of fine soil particles to be dislodged from the crater to a distance. So it has been dislodged from that point to another point over there. And that's causing splash erosion. So if this one continues for a period of maybe a duration of a week or two or a month, then we are going to have this one generating into another form of erosion. So that's all about splash erosion. Then we look at sheet erosion. How does sheet erosion occur? So sheet erosion, this is the uniform removal of soil in a thin layer from a flat or gently sloping land. The soil is eroded in a widespread form and the water flows at a slow speed, carrying soil from the top layer. So sheet erosion, we have said, is the uniform removal of soil. Uniform removal of soil. In a thin layer. From flat or gently sloping land. Flat or gently sloping area. So we are going to have an example of sheet erosion. So this one is a gently sloping area or a flat area. The soil is eroded in a widespread form and the water flows at a slow speed, carrying soil from the top layer. So we are going to have our rainwater is going to flow uniformly. So it's going to erode the soil of our wide area. And so we are going to have uniform erosion of this soil. That's leading to sheet erosion. So it's referred to as a sheet because when you look at it on the surface of the ground, it looks like a sheet. An example of a sheet, like you have a sheet of paper. So this soil is going to be lost uniformly across the surface of the soil. Then we also have real erosion. Real erosion. Number 3, we have real erosion. So we look at how real erosion takes place. So in real erosion, this is the removal of soil by water from small but well-defined channels. This is the removal of soil by water from small but well-defined channels. This type of erosion is common in slopes with little vegetation or fields which have been plowed. So an example, we're going to have an example of real. So we are talking about small but well-defined channels. Small but well-defined channels. So we will find our surface layer of water. As it flows on the surface of the soil, it removes or it detaches the soil from the soil surface, leaving some rills, which leads now to the formation of rill erosion. Finally, we look at the gully erosion. Gully erosion. So gully erosion Gully erosion, in this case, gullies, they are advanced stage of river erosion. So when we talk about the river erosion, we have the small channels. So when we talk about now the gully erosion, we have the advanced stage of the river erosion. So it means that we are going to start by the rills, then the rills will advance to form the gullies. So we are going to have some gullies forming from the already formed rills. So gullies are advanced stage of river erosion. It involves the formation of large channels which do not disappear at any season. And gully erosion involves four steps. Number one, the rain falls and we have the rain falls and rainwater starts moving on the land. Number two, channels are formed when water is flowing. We have the formation of the channels. The channels widen due to the moving water, so we have the widening of the channels because of the force of the moving water. And then finally, the flow of the channels deepen due to the water movement, thus leading to gully erosion. So next time we are going to look at the two types of gully, which are the U-shaped gully, and then we have the V-shaped gully. So up to that point, dear learners, I hope you are now aware of the various types of soil erosion and the factors influencing soil erosion and the various types of soil erosion by water. So up to that point, I just wish you well. So we will, in our next lesson, we shall look at the U-shaped and the V-shaped and how they are formed. So have a nice time. God bless you.